I want to respond to this Elana Brower thing. And there's a lot to respond to. I left a friend of mine like a 6-minute, I think, voice memo with some of my thoughts around the whole situation and this letter that's been written, calling it. And we see these situations a lot right now, right? Wellness professionals, spiritual leaders being called out for behavior that someone feels was just kind of cross lines, you know. And I don't really know what side of the argument I'm on here. I'm just sort of trying to witness as a passive bystander, I guess. But there is one of the things that really stood out to me about what was happening in this situation with Elaine. I should look up the name of the girl who's it's Elana Brower. Open letter, here it is. I just want to get the student's name, Tatum. Yeah, so Tatum. One of the things that Elena kept like calling her out for, I guess, was her use of marijuana and your use of like substances in general, maybe. I can't remember exactly what they were, but the one that stood out to me was marijuana. Because I've had somebody in my life, actually, sort of a spiritual guide to me. I've had a presence in my life be very emphatic with me about what I'm doing when I'm using marijuana as constantly as I am. And it's sometimes I appreciate the severity of it, right? And you see that in Elena's letter too. She's like, there's these exchanges, these text message exchanges that are like, you've been smoking again. I could tell, I can tell from your tone, you've been using marijuana again, whatever it is. And I guess Elana Brower did do this thing where she like just kind of, oh, here it is. Yeah. You're a beautiful leader and teacher and you're valued. Let me share my screen actually. We can look at this together. Please don't judge me for my tabs up there. By the way, doing a tab workshop coming up. And what a tab workshop is I'll show you how to effectively clear out all your tabs and to do it in a way where you get to complete the cycle of the tab. So for example, like you have to think about this. Every tab you have open is, it's like the start of a thought cycle that didn't get to finish or that didn't get to complete, because otherwise you probably would have closed the tab, right? And maybe that's not the case. Maybe you just keep them open, so it's fine. You can go back and finish them. But for me, I find like, oh, here's this article that's called, this is what I have to do now as a health coach, an evolutionary perspective on why food overconsumption impairs cognition. And so this is an NCBI paper that was written on basically what happens when we eat too much. So I need to read it, and I didn't finish reading it, so I left the tab open. Here's like this one I could close probably. Instagram could close. So what you then do with these tabs is, if it is something that you want to go back to, copy the link, close the tab, go to your calendar tool. So whatever it is, like for me, it's Google Calendar. And then you create a little, like, ideally you already have some time blocked out on your calendar. And this is where we get to go through the ideal calendar exercise. And I'm thinking this is really something we should do in Journey to You, just to see how it benefits people. Because then what I could do is, you see, I have all these blocks, like from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. For example, I have this block it's called the strategic block. So it's my time to just kind of come in and strategize on what needs to happen next at patrickyoga.com and all these things. But what I do is I just paste the link right there in the details of that event. And so then when I go there, I open that up and I see, okay, this is the first thing I have to do now that I'm here at this I've arrived at this buffer block, if that makes sense. Okay, so more on the ideal calendar later, more on the tabs later. Sorry, that was a huge diversion from this thing at Tatum. Because I find this interesting, and I guess it's really speaking to me because I'm in this field now. I'm a health coach, and I have people that are paying me, a good amount of money to work with me from 1 year to the next. Okay, and so that kind of puts me in a position of leadership and authority in some sense, as much as I try to make the spaces that I hold very horizontal, very open. there's still some onus that's upon me as the leader of the group and the one who, and that's going to be true of all of you teachers, like everyone who's leading a space, there's still some responsibility that comes with a responsibility. And here you see like an open letter to Elana Brower, CW, spiritual and emotional abuse. So what's happening here in this open letter is that like they're citing a case of abuse. It's pretty big. She starts here, it's taken me 5 years to write this letter to you. In that time, I've started several drafts and then given up because I feared no one would believe me. You and your rich friends would find ways to delegitimize me. Both my fears will likely come true to some degree, but no one can take away what is true to me, and that's what I'm about to share. So, the open letter. I feel like I've started a couple of open letters in my day too. It's like open letter to, nobody who asked to read this. No, but I think this is probably important, to see what's here. And guys, I'm just going to be really, really frank. Sometimes the thing that rubs me the wrong way about open letters is that they cry victimhood. And I don't know, I don't think there's anything, I mean, good God, can I even say something like that? That it doesn't serve us to be in a mode of victimhood? Here's the word victim right here, actually. I know that other people have challenged you in your choices in the last few years, and your response has been to play the victim and shirk accountability. So here you have victimhood on both sides. She's saying even that Elana, the supposed leader of this group, is now playing the victim. My thing is just like, I want to take responsibility for whatever's going on in my life. It's a mindset to operate that way. I had a conversation with a friend in Rome, and she told me that was actually integral to her healing process as she kind of moved through having breast cancer and operations, mastectomy, and all of that, chemo and everything. It was like the healing really came, she said, when she started to take responsibility for how she contributed to her condition. And she just sort of, I remember her like saying very matter-of-factly, I'm sure it was something emotional. I'm sure it was something emotional that got stored up when I was a child, didn't get fully processed. And you guys, that's like how it happens. Our issues are in our tissues, so the psycho-emotional stuff that you've got going on in your mind, it's going to manifest in your body and in your cells. Cells become precancerous, then they become cancerous, especially if you're not healthy and if you're not in a healthy place. So this is all very interesting because it's like, we're in the field of wellness here with Elana, an open letter to Elana Brower. We're in the field in the domain of people trying to become their best selves. And here you have what they're calling spiritual and emotional abuse, victimhood. Now, I think that one of the big things with Elana Brower is that she uses that doTERRA essential oil multi-level marketing framework. And I just, for me, multi-level marketing is not it. It doesn't vibe with me. And I'm not trying to pass any judgment on it. I know other people who are like, I'll pass judgment on it. They're scams. Don't do them. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. I don't know. But you got to trust trust your intuition. And that's where these multi-level marketing things become scary, because there's a lot of influence. They're putting a lot of influence on you to buy in to the pyramid scheme. It's that great scene in The Office where, Michael in the beginning is describing this new business venture, and the guys are like, how is that not a pyramid scheme? And he's like, it's not a pyramid scheme. And he starts to draw out, one guy at the top, 2 guys below him, 4 guys below them. And then Jim just walks up, takes the marker and draws a triangle right around it. Classic. So I don't know. I spent countless unpaid hours promoting your work, studying your teaches, emulating your verbiage, evangelizing your offerings. I didn't earn enough as a teacher or in your downline to pay off any of these costs. Like, what does that even mean? In your downline? Is that multi-level marketing speak that I'm just not familiar with? And I don't personally know anyone who did. I'm not writing this because I want my money or time back. I made peace with those losses a long time ago. I'm writing this because I know I'm not alone. Okay. I feel like I'm doing a really savage read on this. I apologize. I'm not trying to. Here's the part about weed, right? It's like she details this whole saga of what happened. She keeps reaching out. The next and final time I reached out to you, I'd finally been removed from your doTERRA team. I texted you asking you for a book recommendation on self-kindness because I was going through a very lonely and challenging time. I'd cut all these toxic people out of my life except you, and I was looking for support. Your response, are you smoking pot? How long has it been since you imbibed any substances? So this to me is what I'm laughing at. Like, I kind of love people who get right to the point like that, you know? And feels like it's not a popular, in some ways, like today, it's not a popular technique in the wellness world. So much of the messaging in the wellness world right now is like, be gentle with yourself, do what you need to do, just feel into it. And honestly, I probably vibe more with that. And then here you have the teacher being like, are you smoking pot? How long has it been since you imbibed any substances? She goes on to say, you told me that if I didn't stop smoking pot, you were out. This ultimatum is another signature handle group tactic. So I don't know what the handle group is, but this is a coaching technique, apparently, the handle group tactic. Your life coach had done it to you, so you did it to me. You said you would talk to me every day if I quit smoking weed. That's weird. That's weird, like incentivizing. Again, attempting to control me and increase contact with me when all I wanted was a book recommendation, Elena. I'm kind of like, if all you wanted was a book recommendation and you knew you weren't getting it, then walk away. Walk away, put the phone down. But we can't do that because we're deeply attached. And I think, like, to me, what disappoints me about this letter is it doesn't highlight the bigger learning that's available here. Like, see what the pattern is and recognize it, and actually write Elena a thank you letter for being like, wow, bitch, thanks for waking me the fuck up. Because I was so blinded by everything you were pitching me, if that's really how she feels. But I see a different narrative here, and I don't know. You also said you would talk to me every day if I quit smoking weed. Again, attempting to, you sent several texts about how I needed to quit sugar and weed because my destructive thoughts were a result of my liver detoxing. Okay, I think that's true. I think that we do get toxic thoughts when our liver is in detox, and our liver is always trying to be in detox. And the degree to which we put more things into our liver to detoxify. So if you are putting more sugar in, and for me, I know it's actually like the data's in. When I smoke weed, I eat more sugar. So I kind of get that, and I appreciate the feedback from Elena there. And this is where it comes back to the woman I was speaking about earlier, Taylor Call. She's just straight up like, don't make this hard on yourself, Patrick. Stop it with the weed, get into nature, feel your flow, feel your joy, feel your ease, and clean up your life. It's hard. I have attachments to this stuff. And I think that there's a little bit of, we're seeing that here too, right? She talks about it extensively in this paragraph. As I responded with several expressionless okays, realizing I needed to stop coming to you because it quickly got manipulative, you said things you knew I longed for, like, you are a beautiful leader and teacher and you're valued. Agreed, no more pot. I said a final okay, but I lied. I didn't quit weed because I didn't want to, so I never wrote you back. And I mean, there you have it. It's, what's the problem? Like, you didn't want to quit weed, so you stopped dealing with her. She was asking you to quit. I think it's a little weird that she was like, I'll talk to you every day if you quit. That feels like a strange ultimatum to me. I want to create a space where, like, hey, come here, hell or high water. You know what I mean? And even if you don't want to talk, just like come hang out with us. for the week, hear how other people are doing in your group. This is Journey to You, right? We meet every week, and it's such a special 90 minutes that we get to spend with each other every single week. And a big part of it is just showing up, just showing up. I can't imagine that I would ever use a tactic like this with anybody in Journey to You, but I only started this stuff back in like May. I haven't been doing this very long. Coaching is a real art. You know, there's a real technique to coaching, and that's an edge for me. It's an edge that I'm continuing to engage with because I'm a coach now. The hardest part about this was never talking to you again. It wasn't never talking to you again. It was losing the community I thought I had while following you. That sucks. When I shared my experience with others, I was uninvited to the club. Friendships ended. People went silent. That sucks. That sucks. And I'm thinking of the communities that I'm in, and I can't imagine any of them being like that if I decided to leave the community. So I guess what I'm trying to get at here is like, what are some of the red flags that we can be helping people identify so that they can get themselves out of situations when they're in situations like this? Because there's a lot of good community out there, guys. Like, you can find it if you just open yourself up to it. And it sounds like there's also a lot of fucking toxic and manipulative community out there. And I don't even know that I'm saying that's Elana Brower. I don't know her work. I actually hadn't heard of her before this whole thing started. And I don't know, like, it sounds like this girl here is having some stuff reflected back to her that she doesn't want to hear. So for example, a few people even came to your defense, claiming you weren't perfect and told me to accept it or move on. Others said, she's never been like that to me, and went on assisting your classes and supporting your work. I want to remind you, I want to remind those of you who are reading this that just because you weren't harmed doesn't mean she isn't capable of harm and shouldn't be held accountable. Okay, that's highlighted. And I think that's highlighted by the Medium page or something, because it says it's a top highlight here. Over the years, you've blocked and unblocked me from your Instagram account. That's weird. And I only know that because every now and then I would try to visit your page and see if you're still doing the same shit, and to remind myself that losing you wasn't, if you're in the wrong situation if you're noticing that your coach is following and unfollowing you on Instagram. And you're in the wrong situation if you're a coach and you're following and unfollowing something. You guys, isn't it sad that that's a thing now? That's even a thing. Something that sentence wouldn't have made sense like 20 years ago. You've blocked and unblocked me from your Insta. Like, if you tried to read this to somebody in the 90s, what do you think they would say? Over the years, you've blocked and unblocked me from your Instagram account. They'd be like, like, what the fuck? And yet we read that now, and some of us are like, ooh, she's playing nasty. She's blocking and unblocking from Instagram. She's using that manipulative tactic. And apparently it's working. Because Tatum wrote an open letter. But then out of nowhere last October, you messaged me from some obscure account that you used to sell museum quality minerals, AKA really expensive rocks, just to say hi. I've never felt so gaslit by a simple hello in my entire life. Fuck. It's the thing about gaslighting is like, was she being gaslit, or was she just making a mountain out of a molehill? Like, why couldn't she look at that email come in from this museum quality minerals at elanabrower.com or whatever the obscure account was? Oh, the obscure account is hyperlinked. Let's see. Oh, it's an Instagram account, of course. Sacred Simple. I mean, are we even sure this is her? They're nice rocks. They're really nice rocks. I don't know, guys. I'd be curious to hear your opinions on this. Like, tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me where I'm just being totally ignorant here. Tell me where I'm being probably like way too harsh and lacking in compassion, but I've got to start like saying what I think and what I feel about this, because it's otherwise I keep it all in. And I think it's nice to open up the dialogue. Okay, I'm so glad I found a therapist who taught me that the way you treated me was not at all okay. Okay, great, that's great. And the thing about like a therapist is actually the therapist didn't teach you that. If it's a good therapist, the therapist made space for you to teach yourself. That's therapy, you guys. There's this great quote that talks about like, I'm gonna read this because it's like, it's so powerful. This is in the beginning of 12 Rules for Life, and it's in the foreword. And honestly, it's actually just a footnote. It's a long ass footnote, so bear with me. Some argue mistakenly that Freud contributed to our current culture, our current longing for a culture, schools, and institutions that are non-judgmental. Okay, it is true that he recommended when psychoanalysts listen to their patients in therapy, they be tolerant, empathic, and not voice critical, moralistic judgments. Okay, so if the therapist is not listing a moralistic judgment, they're not teaching you that what Elana Brower did to you was wrong. They're just reflecting back for you that you feel it was wrong. And that's the beauty of therapy. That's a good therapist. They're like a mirror of accountability. It's like, okay, well, you know, this is what you've brought into the space. This is what's been established. Okay, so he's saying, it's true that Freud recommended that when psychoanalysts listen to their patients in therapy, that they be tolerant, empathic, and not voice critical, moralistic judgments. But this wasn't to promote a society that was non-judgmental. No, this was for the express purpose of helping patients feel comfortable in being totally honest and not diminishing their problems. This encouraged self-reflection and allowed them to explore warded-off feelings, wishes, even shameful antisocial urges. It also, and this was the master stroke, allowed them to discover their own unconscious conscious and its judgments, and their own harsh criticisms of their lapses, and their own unconscious guilt, which they had often hidden from themselves, but which often formed the basis of their low self-esteem, depression, and anxiety. If anything, Freud showed that we are all both more immoral and more moral than we are aware of. Okay, again, if anything, Freud showed that we are both more immoral and more moral than we are aware of. Chew on that for a second. You are more immoral than you're aware of, but you're also more moral. That's hard to say. More moral than you're aware of. Spend some time with that. This kind of tactic, this kind of non-judgmentalism in therapy, it's a powerful and liberating technique or tactic, an ideal attitude when you want to better understand yourself. But Freud never argued, as do some who want all culture to become one huge group therapy session, that one can live one's entire life without ever making judgments or without morality. In fact, his point in Civilization and its discontents is that civilization only arises when some restraining rules and morality are in place. So we've got to put some restraining rules. We've got to have some morality. We've got to have judgment. And it's so cool because it's like one of the things that you get to do in the healing process and working with a therapist, for example, is like to get to a point where you're in integrity with your own judgment. We can't, this culture of no judgment, it's like, well, that only gets you so far. Eventually, you're going to need to make some judgments in your life, make some judgment calls. So, and here it is, you know, it sounds like one of the judgment calls that was in conflict here is this idea of you know, use of marijuana or use of substance. And the way I started this whole video was just because I'm reminded of Taylor. the woman I have in my life. She's also the woman who's been like emphatically trying to get me to get out of New York City. And this is based on things that I've shared with her, you know, intuitions that I've been feeling. Is there any legitimacy to somebody being that emphatic with you about something like stop smoking weed, get out of the city? Because I know a lot of people today that would like, they'd be like, don't fucking tell me what to do. I'm going to do what I want to do. And I'm just trying to hold room for both, I guess, and be like, well, why? I wonder why they're saying that. There must be some reason. And if their field is wellness, and this Elana Brower woman, she's done some work. Let's finish this letter out, and then I'll wrap this whole thing up. The only receipts I have are for the last text message conversation in your recent DM. You did your dirtiest work over the phone or in person where no one could trace it. So I'm sure your business partners and followers will dismiss me as some quack who wants fame and attention. But as I said previously, I don't want that. I just want to connect with the other people you've harmed and want them to feel truly seen and validated as they deserve to be. So it's actually not an open letter to Elana Brower in that case. It's an open letter to like the other victims of Elana Brower, but she titles the thing an open letter to Elana Brower. Is an open letter is an open letter ever not just like a huge read? Just like a huge like, okay, get ready. Guns are out, like here we go, all fires ablaze. Okay, so that's it. Onward. She says she signs it with onward. You know what, Tatum, I support that. Onward and upward. Oh, and then there's a follow-up. After publishing the open letter, Elana responded on social media and in text messages, one of which she shared publicly on her story. This is my response, and I will not engage further with her. Elana, I want to be clear, I didn't do this to take you down, as you said in the last 8 minutes of your Instagram Live, which was deleted on October 21st. Again, think of describing that to a person in the 90s. It's kind of a good metric, I think, to evaluate like the things that you're doing. Like could you clearly describe these things for somebody 20 or 30 years ago? Would they not look at you like you're a complete crazy person? Some things no. As I stated in the letter above, I shared my story for others, not for accountability. This remains unchanged. Well, again, I sort of, oh, let's hear it. Here's an Elana thing. This looks like it was an Instagram post. Yesterday, I got word that there was negativity being tossed around about me in the ethers, which happens a few times a year. Projections are real. So I took the day to quietly do my errands, chauffeur my kid, clean my home, and reflect. Sounds like a good day. The folks sharing the negativity aren't new. They come around every few months to sling barbs, so I'm used to it. Their complaints are mostly that I sold out. I started working for other companies and doing things other than yoga so I could make money to raise my child. That's actually where I am too. Not that I'm raising a child, just Mac, but I have to provide for me and Mac. And I'm this coaching stuff. It's like I'm doing stuff other than yoga now, and I'm actually trying to compete in the marketplace. I'm trying to generate an income for myself so I can have a balanced lifestyle, income, and impact in the world. That's important to me. So I don't know exactly what she's referring to, but the idea that she's sold out. I bet that there's some wellness people out there in the world who are like, it's a sellout to take money for healing somebody. And I think of like the conversations that I've had with my friend Liz Moyer at wehealforall.com. Definitely check out wehealforall.com, Liz Moyer. And we've had a lot of good conversations about like the gift economy. And what it is and what it isn't, to offer your services as a gift. What is it and what isn't it? Okay, so she started working for other companies and doing things other than yoga so I can make money to raise my child. I can understand that might be disturbing or scary. It was for me in the beginning. So she even says it was hard for her at first. Eventually, I learned that selling stellar products can help people thrive, can be a big, proud part of my work. I love my extended family of colleagues across the globe, and I'm grateful for the growth we experienced together. Okay, so I don't know what product she's talking about. I don't know if she's talking about doTERRA or what. When I set out to teach yoga, it was about creating freedom in body and mind. It was about giving folks what I'd been given, a feeling of empowerment, of tenderness, of fascination with humanity. I offer practices that reorient us to what matters, to our dignity, our integrity, and our willingness to remember how human we are when we falter, to give ourselves grace when we make mistakes. So to the folks who choose to share negativity, hi again. I'll always be here if you'd like to talk. I'm sorry if I've hurt you. I wish I could say directly to your face how sorry I am for any pain I've caused. Please know that any pain I caused was never intended. I own it and I apologize. I've always tried my best to offer tools and practices that were effective for me, but those tools and ways aren't for everyone. I'm not for everyone. And at almost 51, I'm okay with that. And to the folks who choose to add to the banter with more negativity, may you be happy, may you be well, may you be safe, may you live with ease. I don't know. To me, it's all right there. I get a very specific tone in one letter and I get a different tone in the second letter. And then it's like, look, all this stuff that this person has put together, it must have been so much work. And what is it? Is it a takedown? Is it cancel culture? Or is it the girl is it Tatum just going through her healing process? I feel like part of the healing process is sort of having to come out. Like it's the second coming out of the closet. I'm like, all right, you know what? This is me. This is healed me. It's different than wounded, traumatized me. And it's different in different ways, right? And sometimes the relationships that we have, they're used to the version of us, the pre-healed version of us. And I got news, you guys, we're always in a state of healing. We will always be in a state of healing our whole lives. Our bodies will just be trying to heal and trying to, the body is designed to do it. It's amazing. Just amazing. And, a big thrust for me and a big part of the work that I'm doing now is, can we put ourselves in spaces and around people and develop habits that are actually supportive of the healing process? And if that's not your life, ask yourself, what would happen if it was? There's this nice concept in yoga called saucha. Saucha means purity. It means purity and orderliness. And I like to think of saucha as everything has a place. Marie Kondo, KonMari method. You open your drawers, boom, there are your clothes. Everything has a place. So there's nothing in your house that doesn't have a place. And so if something's out of its place, there's a very natural progression to just putting it back in its place, right? But I think what happens when there becomes clutter or mess is like you start to have stuff that doesn't really have a specific space. And so it can just be where you put it. And then you're out of order. Like that's not orderly because it's not intentional. You're just kind of, it's there. And similarly, I think like everything that I've been discussing today, there's a place for all of this. In our own framework that we're creating for ourselves to use to think about the world and to think about our experience, in creating that framework, kind of think of where this goes for you. This open letter to Elana Brower, where there's resonance, where there's resistance. All right, that's it.